are back. Coalition building ni kizungumkuti. This thing is tough. You were talking about, and when we left, I think you'd also said, Linus, that if we ever do get our hands on the Azimio la Umoja, One Kenya Coalition political party, I think it's a mouthful, that we could find that, you know, there are problems there as well. And you were telling us about that because this is now a matter of law, because there is a coalition political party. Details of what is in the deal and how things work out, where would we find that?
Well, I have a copy of that agreement here. And we reported about it, I think, a day before yesterday.
Yes.
It is 30 pages, the Azimio agreement is 30 pages. It was signed on 12th of March. However, the difference is that the Kenya Kwanza agreement is quite detailed. But this one, for Azimio, Article 11 talks about organization of government. It goes on to say, the parties to this coalition agreement shall form a coalition government. Organization of government in the coalition government will be governed by the following principles: national aspiration for an inclusive, democratic and participatory governance as enshrined in the Constitution, equality and equity, utmost good faith, you know, adherence to the terms of the coalition agreement. It ends there. You see,
where are the details? The
details are in the schedules. But this document as it is now, this is what was registered with deposited with the registrar of political parties. It does not have the schedules. But you can be sure that the schedule is somewhere. However, to avert probably a fallout, because guys will ask questions like, oh, so who is getting what? It would be contained in that schedule. Either it is there or it will be introduced once the government is formed if Azimio wins. And you will still be postponing the inevitable because it will still come to the question of how you share power. And that is the whole quarrel around here. Look, if you have, let's say, a schedule in the Azimio agreement now or in the future, people will still argue that I deserved this, I didn't deserve this. You got this, you should not have gotten this. For the Kenya Kwanza agreement, because that is what is largely in the public domain now, the argument is, what do you bring to the table? It's a question that is always asked in the political arena. What you bring determines what you get.
Yeah.
And so that's why you will hear all manner of percentages, 70, 35, 50, because you're being told, go, bring this so that you get this. So in the event you don't get this, you either negotiate downwards or you explain the special circumstances that caused you to get this and not this. So either way, there will come a time where an annexure to this will come in. And you will see the same problems, if not bigger problems, than what is now being seen in the Kenya Kwanza coalition. And so I would look at what is happening to Arsenal now. They are 3-0 down. So watapigwa mpaka watuambie schedule ya Azimio agreement iko wapi?
Yvonne, can you please handle this? You're moderating this session. Please deal with the member from Banana.
Yes, the member from Banana.
Yes.
Please desist from making any analogies with Arsenal. It is already clear that they are beaten badly.
The member from Kericho is not happy.
You have raised your point of order. The member from Osinoni.
Yes.
You have the floor.
No, just one point I wanted to make, and in reference to these questions being raised about whether, and we saw Kabogo earlier on saying that Mount Kenya has been shortchanged. My assumption is the UDA party is coming from its original position, its original argument that UDA is the Tanga wing of Jubilee. Jubilee, which was a party that was homegrown also in central Kenya. And so the assumption is you are equal home owners within the UDA fraternity. And so, again, there's some consistency here in my view. Remember the DP had said, no, we don't want small, we don't want to the little parties. That has consistently happened in terms of Central Kenya. You have the Service Party, you have Moses Kuria's party,
Chama cha Kazi,
and you have Kabogo, and all these perception and assumption that, oh, they'll get into some written agreement with UDA. It comes out that, no, there's no such agreement. And we're only saying that because there could be a lot more we do not know. Is it just one, was this the one arrangement they went into, and this is the only agreement that has been entered into? Because definitely TSP, Moses Kuria's Chama cha Kazi, and Chama Kujibeba, what's the name of it?
Tujibebe Party.
Tujibebe. that name is not a good one, especially if you complete it in Kenyan lands. And they are missing in the agreement. And so that can also potentially be a starting point to an argument that where are your other brothers who are so visible in Kasarani during the launch of the UDA presidential campaign? Why are they not anywhere in the deal? So you will see also, of course, political arguments saying that, look, only one position has been reserved for you, and that is that of the running mate. So which part of Mount Kenya does it go to? That'll be the next conversation.
But of course, Linus, there exists agreements that were signed by Tujibebe, by TSP, by CCK. We saw that at Ngong Road the other day. Yes. 11 political parties signed agreements. I mean, they were there, we saw them. But
let's add Speaker Justin Muturi.
DP as well.
But those agreements are similar. However, this is the catch. The primary document is signed by 3 parties.
Founding members.
Founding members. And it is clearly outlined. ANC, UDA, and Ford Kenya. So whichever agreement that TSP, Chama cha Kazi, DP, Governor Wambora's party, new party, all those parties, the agreements they signed between them and the 3 parties and the mother coalition, the original Kenya Kwanza coalition. Remember, these are parties that joined in later. You know, they joined in later. So it is not the agreement between them and DP. DP Ruto. It's not the agreement
between them and UDA.
Between them and UDA.
Between them and
the Kenya Kwanza team.
Okay.
And so probably that speaks to what you're saying, that this is the original setup. So whoever joins in, you have to take your position in the queue.
But obviously there'll be impressions, especially with regard to the late entry of Pa and Maendeleo Chap, which straight walked into the pages of the agreement that then goes to the registrar of political parties. And so, I mean, we are having a conversation that doesn't have any of those names. We are having a conversation that has the latest defectors, and that is Pa and Maendeleo Chap. Actually, more specifically, Kingi and Alfred Mutua.
And maybe the defection gave them some value.
And I don't know if this holds any water, that is it the disputes, the political parties disputes resolution tribunal said that hawezi kuondoka kabla ya mwezi 6 kabla ya uchaguzi, right? But of course that's neither here nor there. Can you legally, what can Azimio la Umoja One Kenya
I'm not sure that they would want to pursue that, or it would be in their best interest. You would want to focus your energies in a different direction. We're talking about conversations that are happening here, and there was one, of course, that took place over 3 days this week, 2 days, right? Monday and Tuesday, and that is the quest for a running mate. Lo and behold, ladies and gentlemen, in fact, I remember this on Tuesday on Daybreak here, sitting with Sam Gituku, was a member of parliament for Kathiani.
Yes, Robert Mbui.
And he categorically stated that Kalonzo Musyoka would not be appearing for the interviews. We heard from other members who said that if he does, he would be going against the party, and this is what they've told him to do, to not go. But he did make his way there,
it's there. I think we have a soundbite.
Yes, we have the images of that, and I think we all saw that. So listen. What happened? What changed? I mean, I know he said he doesn't want to give a reason or an excuse for them to say, but you didn't take this seriously enough. But Jamila.
Kalonzo Musyoka has said from the beginning that he deserves to be Raila Odinga's running mate for the third time. He's been vice president. He's been minister for finance at some point. Foreign affairs. Vice president. He has ana tajriba. Kwa Kiswahili tunasema ana tajriba. So na ni mwanasiasa amekoma. Yeah, and he feels that him and the 1.7 million votes from Mukambani, where he is kingpin, watu wanamfuata huko, it is the other three governors notwithstanding, ana uzito fulani ambao anaoleta kutoka eneo la Ukambani, and he believes that
alisema ni interview gani watamfanyia. Kwanza
alisema ni interview gani watamfanyia, lakini amesema ataki baadaye iseme we're not considering him because akujileta kwenye interview. But Yvonne, the interviews have happened, okay? Kalonzo alikuja among 10 others. Wamehojiwa kwa siku mbili. And then, of course, the 3 names have been submitted to Raila Odinga. Of course, there was the anapasa kupokea akiwa Nairobi, hayuko Nairobi, yuko Coast, so ametumiwa huko. We were expecting him kutangaza, but he didn't. So we are all waiting eagerly for 16th of May at 11:59 p.m. And by that time, tuone which of the two sides has make that announcement. And remember, Yvonne,
but I think they did say they would issue. I mean, I think the 3 names at least by Monday.
Yeah, but then Yvonne. When you look at the kelele that's been on Azimio la Umoja One Kenya with this running mate issue, Yvonne, and this week it reached the crescendo of sorts, of course, until we get the names with the interviews and what was happening at Serena and all that. And then I think one thing we can say before Lina Sorgashuri comes in, on the Kenya Kwanza side, I think one person who I think we can remove from that list of potential running mates is Musalia Mudavadi, because of the promises that he's been given as your position.
Prime Cabinet Secretary.
Prime Cabinet Secretary.
Thank you, Prime Cabinet Secretary. So tumemwondoa. But let's come back to this side. With Enoch Wambua, who is the representative of the white president, the representative on that jopo maalum, we call it jopo maalum kwa Kiswahili, not being there for the final announcement of the 3 names that had been shortlisted, not given the names, but he wasn't there for the press conference. When he was there all through, of course, raises questions that, kwa nini yako hapo, pengine Kalonzo amekosewa, why wasn't he there? I was just reading in one of the local dailies that he was called, and he said, well, he had to attend a school function at his county. He could not miss it. But then some are saying, well, it was just a 10-minute press conference. Maybe we're reading too much into Enoch Wambua not being there or being there all through and not being there at the end. But Yvonne, I think whatever the process was, kuna jopo, we had never seen anything like this before in previous elections, but it has happened. Kuna jopo limeteuliwa, limefanya mahojiano, kila aliyetaka alifika, akahojiwa, wanawekewa marks kama unafanyiwa interview ya job, mnakuwa ranked, ule alipata 80%, alipata 82%, alipata 74%. It doesn't matter. Ultimately, Yvonne, we will have a running mate from Azimio One Kenya coalition party. We'll have one from Kenya Kwanza. All the deadlines that have been set by IEBC for these announcements to be made will come and go. And then now, we'll start having now, I think, serious campaigns in terms of what are you bringing to the table.
I think what was striking for me in the course of this, I think we said it here before, that, we're going through the motions with this. I mean, I think it's already been decided. But wasn't it interesting that there was a short list which became a long list?
There were 7 and then they became 11.
There were 7 and then there were 11. So typically a short list is where you narrow down from a larger list of names, numbers, items, you narrow it down to a few, and then you subject those few to the next process of elimination. But we had a short list, and then there were some names that were supposedly added later, and then you had interviews where, amongst other things, they were asking about loyalty, which I guess, has been an issue considering present circumstances that we've seen of the deterioration of the relationship between the president and his deputy. But a lot of those questions, so for instance, you'd be asked, Jamila, are you loyal to the flag bearer? It's an interview. Are you going to say, sometimes, maybe, I'm not sure. It'll depend.
What is the loyalty meter?
Yes, it'll depend on whether, there's whatever circumstances. But all of that, just seemed to be going through the motions and people presenting themselves and saying, I am the youthful candidate, I am the one representing the women. That I thought was the most interesting thing. you know, in this whole process, Linus, what were your thoughts? I mean, that just struck me. Short list, long list, and then all of these, you know, those all the, complete with the walks, you know, for the camera. And it actually felt like the JSC interviews for members of the Supreme Court, which, you know, is a completely different type of interview that is a little more serious than that.
You see, in politics, Yvonne, we sometimes come across as how not to do it kind of model. For heaven's sake, this is just candidates picking their running mates. It's not supposed to be a ritual like what the country is going through right now. Because what is a running mate? A running mate is supposed, in the end, to be the principal assistant of the candidate, the president. So there are only about 2 or 3 things that really count. First of all, because we got this culture of running mates from the US, the reason was in case of incapacitation of the president, in case of the death of the president, God forbid, that person can actually be president. So the ability to be president, whatever that is, was the first requirement. Number 2 is the ability to interpret the vision of the president and implement and support. It's not your show. It is the show of your boss. So you're coming in as a support cast for the candidate. And so what has traditionally happened is candidates look for loyal and able running mates that they can trust. You know, you don't want to...
good relationship between them.
Good chemistry is very, very important. So that you don't start doubting, you know, whether you'll be in power or not. But now we've expanded it. This time our picking of running mates has been as tough, if not slightly more tougher than that of picking presidential candidates themselves. The good old times when Azimio was picking candidates, Musalia Mudavadi appeared before MKF in lunch in Mount Kenya Foundation in Safari Park. Safari Park had more open, televised interviews, which is probably the route we should have taken with the running mates as well. But this is what it points to. When it's this complex, first of all, it points to the very base of our political principles, which is politicians are very, very selfish. They are in this for themselves. They are not really connected by ideals. Few of them are, but a majority of them are not. It's just about what can you give me so that I can be in power. It doesn't matter. So the way we're going through the picking of running mates, this is not how it's done. It's supposed to be a quiet, contemplative process by the candidate. They're supposed to go on a retreat, stay in the South Coast and with a small team that can quietly call in somebody. And if you look even at someone like Donald Trump, who is impersonation of chaos as a person, he still went through a much, much orderly and quiet process of picking a running mate in Michael Pence, because the principles also played. Which base do you want to appeal to? Obviously, right now we are trying to look at the first 2 major tribes that can help you move as close as possible to the 50+1 threshold. So again, we are going through it the wrong way. I think I mentioned in 1992 when Bill Clinton became candidate for the Democratic Party, there was a short list of 50 that was then cut down to about 5. He ended up having a lunch session that was supposed to be 1 hour with
Al Gore, who he had never met.
He had never met. And they stayed there for 3 hours. And they thought, 1 hour to 3 hours, this is the guy that should be my running mate. Of course, we are very far away. And I don't buy the argument, Francis, normally Kenyans like saying, oh, but US has had how many years of independence? They're on their nearly third century. But I think we've existed for just as long. I mean, we're not created after them. I mean, in fact, we are luckier. Humans, right? Yes. In fact, we are luckier that, you know, there are all these models that we can either borrow.
We don't have to make the same mistakes.
Cross-pollinate. But again, I go to my core argument that maybe in writing the Constitution of Kenya 2010, we went too far from who we are. Look at this. There'll be a lot of outcry. There'll be a lot of problems the day running mates are named, because there are quite a number of people are expecting to be named. Give me just a minute, Yvonne, to talk about Kalonzo Musyoka, who ran a very public campaign, saying, I am the most qualified.
All the way from Mukambani to Mombasa, actually, in the lead-up to the interviews. This is not the way running mates are picked anywhere. Because it's such an aggressive approach, it becomes acrimonious. Just when we are now saying this should not be the kind of coexistence between a president and deputy president, because Kenyans are there now discussing how Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto have executed the office of president and deputy president. And again, it's a mastered model on how not to do it. Now, we're being fed with this from the grassroots. Yeah, before right? The election, before now, the win.
It's starting at running mate stage.
Right.
If you look at Kalonzo Musyoka, if that is how the team and his advisors handled it, how would they handle it once they are in office? These are questions that must be asked, because we have seen what a deputy president that can move away from his boss can actually do and run a parallel political conversation that is very destabilizing to order and national national order, basically. So, first of all, Kalonzo Musyoka has gotten it wrong on approach. Oh, there was something that they did the other day. There was a prayer in, was it in Wote? Where now you had people praying, clergymen dressed in red and,
they prayed.
And praying and endorsing Kalonzo Musyoka. Now, that is blackmail on another level. Now it's taking religious proportions. So I think there are a lot of lessons that are coming out of this Azimio la Umoja selection process. It is a massive process. It is complicated, complete with a selection panel, which in my view should not have been public. It should have been sitting somewhere in the many exclusive places we have in this country to talk to people and come with a short list, announce the name quietly. These are conversations that are supposed to be in the back room. The public doesn't have to know everything you're doing. Don't do it in public, some of those things.
Because that is the ideal situation, proper ideal situation. But the reality of our politics is that certain things will be done in a certain way. And I'm not surprised whatsoever that we've seen the kind of arguments and jostling for the running mate position in Azimio like we have currently seen. I mean, if it was such a simple thing, the initial deadline before it was extended to 16th would have simply been met.
I disagree, Francis, because I don't think we should keep trying to justify that there is our Kenyan way of doing some of these things. Civility is universal.
Precisely, and that's why I'm saying we ordinarily would expect an ideal situation if it was an organized coalition that, you know, is based by ideologies and policies and agreeing that we have come together to pursue certain interests. It would be such an easy thing. I mean, look, in 2013, there was a running mate across board. In 2017, there were running mates. We never saw interviews. We never saw this kind of jostling. Even if there was, it was done very silently. The reason why we have this kind of a scenario, and not just in Azimio, but even probably to some extent in Kenya Kwanza, is because, number one, people have realized the power of first negotiate before you commit. Secondly, the interesting position of the running mate in the entire structure of government. I mean, this is the president in waiting. However, the only challenge with it is that we have seen a bad example of how to conduct a presidential system by the president and his deputy. So the person who becomes the running mate, this is a deputy president, if that coalition wins, is a heartbeat away from the presidency and can actually start campaigning for the presidential seat as soon as he's sworn in.
Which he did say.
Which is yes, but remember,
and even actually, though probably he may have said it in jest, Kalonzo even said as much that he has realized what Ruto did, and so he would also do the same because he still has political ambitions. And also, other than the names, the candidates themselves, the aspirants themselves, there are also people behind them who are pushing for a certain position. I mean, we've seen MPs from Wiper say it's Kalonzo or nothing. We've seen because they also have a certain interest.
Yeah.
When they have a running mate from their region, it becomes easy for them to get the positions that they are looking for.
Francis,
not the ideal situation, but the political reality.
It's not even ideal or anything, but it's just not the way to do it. It points to our lack of a political culture. Culture and customs. You know, you need, these are not written. Ungwana, just a way of doing things, because not everything should be scripted by the Constitution.
Yeah.
Here is what would happen if we were to say, it's okay, people should campaign to be candidates, presidential candidates, then others should campaign to be presidential running mates. You know what that will open to? People should also campaign to be cabinet secretaries. People should also campaign to be PSs and all that. And suddenly we'll have the kind of chaos that this country is actually heading. We look orderly, but we are actually politically a very chaotic space because of lack of discipline. I want to use a poor example. It's a bit quiet, Kenya Kwanza. Why is it a bit quiet at Kenya Kwanza?
The jostling is within.
It's also within, and they have the lack of not having too many people who feel it's their turn to be president. There is, in a sense, a bit of order that says the leader is clearly William Ruto.
Yeah.
And that none of them are challenging that. Number two, they seem to give him room that he will pick.
He'll make decisions.
He'll make a decision on running mates. So you do your thing. You want to please him. Maybe do rallies. You do your thing, what you can, as long as you're not running an open.
And he has the final say.
Yeah,
yes. Have you imagined, for example, if Kindiki Kedure, professor, decided to do a campaign road trip from here to Tharaka Nithi just to show that, you know, he has the numbers, it's a time, he's senior, he's a good draftsman of this coalition agreement. I mean, how will that play out? Speaker Muturi, he is the third in terms of the power scale right now, the third in command.
He could easily use that.
He could easily use that and say, look, I'm the senior most person from government right now. Give it to me. You see, some of this is
the same.
Yes.
I've been loyal.
So I think the point I'm making here is we must insist on good manners from politicians. And good manners are not necessarily written in the Constitution. Don't look for them in acts of parliament. It's about your own personality and how you actually choose to behave. I never stop pointing at the example of Tanzania, which has some standardized way of conducting themselves. If we had the kind of transitions they have had to deal with there, like a president dying in the middle of COVID-19, then I don't know how it would have gone here. Would it be as smooth as it was there with all these egos, all these bad manners? It'll be very difficult. One last point I just want to make on the Kalonzo appearance in the interviews. Of course, the question is, why did he do it after so many statements that he won't do it? Kalonzo is a victim of very many forces that speak to his ear. I think if there is a politician that hears so many things and a multiplicity of voices and advice, it is Kalonzo Musyoka. First of all, he's surrounded by Ukambani politicians who have something to protect in the backyard. They need him up there so that Wiper and the Wiper wave can work all the way to the grassroots, because
and sweep them to parliament.
It pushes them to parliament. So there's some self-interest there. But again, now there is another power play game in Nairobi where things are decided. There were some reports about President Uhuru Kenyatta having a hand in asking him to go to the interview. My own reading of the situation is, right now, if you want to travel, and a COVID certificate is a must, what does that mean, Francis? Even for someone that fears jabs like you, you have to get injected.
Yes, right.
One way or another.
You have to get injected.
Look,
we have to wrap this.
Please allow me to say this, Yvonne. The deadline is Monday.
Yep.
I mean, by 11:59 p.m. on Monday, the names of the running mates must be submitted. So it is inevitable. You have to do it. And here is the catch. It is not, especially for Azimio, it's not so much about who Raila Odinga will pick as his running mate, but so much about how to contain
the others,
those who will not get. I think that is where the bigger headache is. And so before the naming, probably on Monday, then work back in the back end to try and contain those who will not get it. And that is now where the question of the schedule comes in. This is where people will be told, you don't go, you didn't get this, you will get this. So before then, your agreement, your schedule, your view, sasa, because it is part of these negotiations that you're trying to see as it happens now. But it is inevitable. Monday night, it will be there. I will not be surprised if they drag it to the very last minute.
Okay, yeah. And we've gotten to the very, very last minute of the show. Ladies, gentlemen.
It's 11:32.
Yeah.
No,
well,
but Thursday, it's not Monday.
Thursday.
Funny.
That's right. Jamila?
Tuende nyumbani, Yvonne. But before you go home, of course, you have to give your last words. And the ladies, anza wewe leo tumekuachia.